Happy Mother's Day. This is Reverend Sam E. Byrd of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Westfield Center, Ohio. Today's message is about mothers. But first I'd like to read you a poem entitled Let Us Tell Stories of Mothers by Maureen Kelleran. Let us tell stories of mothers, stories that could be true. Let us tell of warm mothers, soft and round, likely to be found with flour on their nose, and always ready to pour you a glass of milk to go with the cookies on your plate. These mothers are increasingly rare. Let us tell of mothers who are like bubbles of champagne. They surprise your senses, leave you giggly, and when you least expect it, they erupt with an unexpected pop. Stories that could be true. Then there are grouchy mothers, stressed mothers, exhausted mothers, faces lined with worry and spirits tired and gray. Other mothers are wise and reliable, not prone to many words or to a lot of noise, but you know that when you need them, they will be there. Let us tell of fierce mothers, the ones who will love you even when you're wrong. Let us tell also of absent mothers, whose memory shimmers at the edges of your heart. Let us tell of distant mothers, cruel mothers, loving mothers, giving mothers. There are walk-away mothers, save the world mothers, too busy mothers, mothers you cry because you lost them, and mothers who make you cry because you can't. Stories that could be true. May we hold in our hearts the mothers we have known, those who have loved us, and those who tried. May we forgive the mothers who didn't get it right and try to release the knots of disappointment, anger, grief, pain. May we hold in our hearts the truth that mothering, nurturing, is a task that belongs to us all. However old or young you are, whatever your gender, may you make room for nurturing in your life this week. May you say something real to a hurried store clerk, give a coworker a genuine compliment, take time to listen deeply to a friend. In our shared silence, may we remember and reflect and create anew the stories of love and nurture. From this point forward, stories that can be true. In today's message, being mindful on Mother's Day. Lord, have mercy. What if, by some way of technicality, what if God, or your personal higher power, was not actually able to have mercy? This phrase has been handed down through the centuries in the Judeo-Christian tradition. They have at times been burdened with patriarchal meaning. So it is interesting to note that in the Syriac family of languages, the original language of the Judeo-Christian tradition, the root word of mercy is womb. The question of translation has some interesting implications. There is a feminine quality hiding in the meaning of these phrases. How would one make a verb out of the word womb, which is the Aramaic, is likely how it would have appeared? Would we say, God womb me? Or God care for me as only one with a womb would care for me? In our language, and perhaps in other parts of our culture, the depth of meaning about motherhood are sometimes obscured. But as sure as we are all here, so is the art of motherhood. We might have to look past some of the traditional or even patriarchal aspects of language. And in our culture, we might have to look past the commercialism and beyond the hallmark claims to discover the depth of what motherhood is. But this essential and life-giving institution of humanity, however imperfect it is, deserves our highest regard. Our degree of mindfulness of motherhood will be reflected everywhere in society. And at some point in my life, probably around the time I started helping with my younger sister and brother, I began to realize that there was a great deal of effort in being a mom. Cooking supper every night, getting us all school clothes for the next day, looking for lost library books, packing lunches, taking us to friends' houses, helping us with homework, packing for the whole family when we went camping several times a month, continuing to love and accept a child who comes out as LGBTQ in their youth. Are these the things that Mother's Day means to recognize and honor? I think we would have to answer yes, but our answer would not yet be complete. I adopted my boys before I transitioned from female to male, so I know what it is like to be both a mother and a father. The balancing act of trying to set good boundaries and raise responsible children, and at the same time wanting to fulfill their wants and needs. Trying to be firm and tender at the same time. Trying to get children to eat healthy, even when the culture around them suggests that sugar and salt-laden carbohydrates are an adequate diet. Running the boys back and forth to practice for Special Olympics and middle school football and track. Sitting through those games when it was raining and snowing. Trips to the zoo, rereading worn-out books before bed, and always the night before Christmas on Christmas Eve. All of these things are easy to see and recall, and easy to be thankful for, because we really do appreciate them, especially since we may have to do them for ourselves now. And eventually, we who are parents realize that there really is a lot of effort that goes into it, a lot of self-sacrifice. Children do not always understand this idea of me time that can be so important to us adults, and to a mother's ability, day after day, to keep offering care. Where is the time for a mother to rejuvenate herself? So, when your child damages the school bus seats and is suspended from riding the bus for a week, rearranging of schedules and plans can be a challenging moment. But mom goes through all the steps to get her child out of the house and safely back and forth to school. And when your child asks, with all the importance of the world, Mom, what's more important, God or the sun? How do you answer? My mother is 89 and in assisted living now. Because of the COVID-19, I can only visit her by standing on opposite sides of the window in her room. I bring her snacks and chocolate brownies and candy. I fill her bird feeders so she can enjoy watching the birds that visit her. But I miss hugging and kissing her more than anything. Even at the age of 61, I still want to show her my affection, how much I appreciate all she has done for me, how she has always shown me unconditional love, how much I love her. I pray every day that we will soon be able to be in the same space when we talk. We are right to look for the meaning of motherhood in its daily tasks, and lunches packed and stories read, and all the goings to and from that motherhood entails. And we would discover even more about the meaning of motherhood in looking deeper into the relationships that we have with mothers and as mothers. We might even discover depth of meaning in relationships with mothers and nurturers who are not our own mothers, but who cared for us nonetheless. As we try to be mindful of all the things this day means, let us also be aware, and perhaps even critical, about the meanings of motherhood that our society may emphasize. To regard motherhood as sacred is not the same as putting it on a pedestal. But there is a cultural icon of motherhood that sits on a pedestal, one that has at times been laden with exhausting expectations of perfection, with assumptions from a culture that no longer is, and that would rather make a profit in the name of motherhood than have us become a society of nurturers. I will say a few words about each of these in turn. Having a certain biology does not oblige one to be a mother. Historically, such an assumption has led too easily to the expectation that nurturing falls on mothers alone, and then from there, that imperfections in the art of nurturing were somehow not also the responsibilities of fathers and men. The possibility that having a certain biology might render some as more natural primary caregivers does not excuse the rest of us from being part of a culture of care. For all our progress, society is still trying to shake off this and similar assumptions. The United States in particular is a culture of cultures, a society of diversity, and within that blessing of diversity, we understand that families come in all shapes and sizes. Some families are adoptive, some have one mom or dad, and some have two moms or two dads. In exasperation over the opposition to marriage rights, I heard a person say, "There are worse things in the world than having two parents who love you." Let it be the quality of nurture that we value more than the arbitrary pattern of family. And finally, we come to the tension between valuing market work and valuing care work. In our commercialized society, we are bombarded with messages that promote business success over relationship success. It is not hard to imagine a society that indeed, if not believes, holds the economy as sacred and relationships as a matter of choice. All we have to do is turn on the news. But there is hope and some mindful imagination of alternatives, of what it might look like to live in a culture characterized by care. When I think about some of those cultural challenges to motherhood, metaphorically, what comes to mind is an image of a group of mothers, perhaps Unitarian Universalist mothers, approaching the cultural icon of motherhood and removing or adjusting some of the symbols and assumptions, of updating the messages that are too narrowly defined motherhood. We recognize that there are some truths, some experiences that can be added to this image or icon only by women, by those who are and who desire to be mothers. But the art of nurturing that might be contained in such an image is something that we can all learn from, not just mothers. So when we look for the meaning of Mother's Day, let us be mindful of all these things. of the basic logistical effort required, of the depth of relationships we have with and as mothers, and also of the cultural messages that nurturing sometimes has to compete with. As I close, I'd like to suggest the possibility of writing letters as a part of celebrating Mother's Day, as a way of collecting and sharing the wisdom and meaning of what it means to be a mother, and even as a way of expanding or healing our relationships with mothers or those who have mothered us. I have a book I made for my mother, and it includes her grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and siblings. It has pictures of her as a child. I especially like the one of her and her brothers and sisters in a cart being pulled by a goat. Always my favorite picture. Let us take this day to be mindful of all the different things that it means to be a mother. And perhaps the way that we might do that is by writing a letter to our mothers or asking them to write one to us. If we have older children, we might write to them about whom they were when they were growing up, or about who you were when you were growing up. On this day, I wish you all, especially the mothers, a happy, bonding, and relaxing Mother's Day. Blessed be the mothers in our lives. And as we go out into the world, let us go from this place with a spirit of care that we might uplift those around us. And may we find ways to appreciate the care and uplift what we have received. Blessed be.